On the Road with Kelly and Bob is brought to you by Mueller Metal Roofs and Buildings. Made in America, made to last. Coming up on this episode...
I went to jobs for many years where I didn't feel good when I walked into the office. Well, I've fixed it so that as junky as it looks to anybody else, this makes me feel good to come in here.
Hi, we're Kelly
and Bob Phillips, and we're on the perpetual road trip of America's back roads,
where the journey is always the destination.
Hi, and thanks for joining us on this episode of On the Road with Kelly and Bob. Kelly, do you remember when there used to be bookstores everywhere?
Oh, yeah. Well, they were in malls, which were everywhere as well.
Yeah, a lot of freestanding. Barnes and Noble was kind of the king at one point.
Books a Million was another. And I loved the fact that they became those stores where you could not only go in and buy a book, but you could also get a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and sit down and kind of peruse your book before you actually bought it.
Yeah, and then, of course, they started disappearing. There are still a few around.
There's still a few, and we were lucky enough on our trip to Alabama to discover just one.
Maybe you have noticed there aren't as many bookstores around anymore. This thing called the internet came along out of nowhere and stole them, swept them away like a mighty hurricane, leaving a few here and there to whimper and die a slow death.
So when we heard about a place smack dab in the middle of Birmingham, Alabama, a place that brings people from all over the world to walk through the shelves and stare at the bound copies of Moby Dick and Robinson Crusoe like they are ancient artifacts from another world, we had to go.
Now, the first thing you need to know is that Birmingham, Alabama is different somehow. Not unique, because there are places like it all over the southern United States, but, well, different, especially if you ain't from around here.
We get visitors from all over the country, in fact, all over the world by accident. You know, they're lost, they're on their way to someplace else. They'll say things like, people are looking me straight in the eye and they're saying good morning. Are they being hostile? They may have an image of what Birmingham, but we don't know. Here's my chance to reverse that. So I will lead them, if they're leadable, into, this is what our mamas taught us. They would roll over in their graves if we didn't say please and thank you. Yes, sir, no, sir, and open the door for you. We just do that. That doesn't mean we're any better or any different from anybody else. It means that's our style of living.
It's who you are.
Yeah. So I'll send them back out if they seem to be able to listen and make sure that they go to a diner where the waitress will call her you sweetie, and when they come back, they almost always say, you're right, this is kind of nice. I might like to move here. People are just friendly.
Meet Jim Reed, the proprietor of Jim Reed's Bookstore and Museum of Fond Memories. And yes, there's a story to that name, but to understand that, you first need to know how Jim grew up.
Suffice it to say that Jim's childhood, his entire human existence until now, has factored heavily into why he does what he does and what this place is all about.
I was born and raised in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I had what I thought then in the 1940s and 50s was a normal place because it was the only place I knew. We were lower middle class or upper lower class. I have no idea which. Never have known. Never knew whether we were poor or not. But my father was a carpenter, my mother was a housewife, had 5 kids in the family, and we just had life. You know, and back then it was playing in the yard like Calvin and Hobbes do. You know, that the last couple of kids in the world play in the yard. You can drive through neighborhoods and nobody's there. We didn't dare get in trouble anywhere because everybody knew each other. And the neighbor had a right to discipline us just like our parents did. The teacher had a right to discipline us just like my mother did. So they didn't go sue the teacher for making us do our homework. They complimented them and,
They
and
thanked them.
sent them fruit.
Right.
It was a wonderful young childhood. Then you read books because this is before television was in homes. Homes did not have television when I was a little kid. So I was raised without television until I was maybe a teenager. So we learned to use our imagination. We read a book, and the book was much better than ever seeing it on some little TV if somebody had one, or listening to it on the radio, because we could imagine what the beautiful princess looked like. We could make more beautiful princesses. We could make more horrible dragons, better than anything anybody would show us. That was my childhood, reading books. Every book was a pop-up book to me. You know what a pop-up book is?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When you open it, every book seems that way to me when I was a kid. And it still does.
Because
It's a
everything
magical
came
world.
to life. You have customers. Go ahead, Jim.
What's going on? Come in. Hey, how are y'all? Look around. We'll get with you eventually. Come and ask questions, interrupt me, because customers come first, even before world-famous podcasters. Come and get me.
Has anyone in this group never been in here?
I've never been in
Move
here.
closer here so we can.
What's the
What
matter
did
with
they
you?
tell you about this place?
How did they describe this place to you?
It's a place that you'll never escape from because it has everything. The most unusual curiosities and books and so forth that you can wander for hours and hours.
What did you think when you heard that?
I'm going.
Oh, yeah, you might have gotten the idea that this isn't just a bookstore. Remember? Jim Reed's bookstore and museum of fond memories? While there are thousands and thousands of books to be found here, there are hundreds of thousands of mostly indescribable things offered here as well.
Stuff. Lots and lots of stuff. Stuff that makes you have, well, fond memories. And it all started with Jim's mother and some advice from his favorite author, Ray Bradbury, who once said,
If you're going to do something, jump off the mountain and build your wings on the way down. Don't wait.
Jim had spent his life doing all kinds of things surrounding media, radio and television, public relations, even advertising, where he says he was an early day madman.
and while he wasn't unhappy, well, he wasn't happy either. Jim finally decided to create his happy place. What is this place?
Well, my mother, who was my greatest influence, loved people. She loved watching people. She loved describing people and talking about people. So I'm a people watcher because of my mother. And so I started writing stuff, notes, and drawings and whatever. When I was so depressed with a madman career that I wanted to get in the fetal position and never get up, I thought, now's the time to take Bradbury's advice. And so I jumped off the cliff. Didn't have any plan except that it was going to be books because books never let me down. It's going to be a museum because my mother, the way she experienced the world was by touching, smelling, feeling. And when she went to a museum, they would slap her hands and tell her to get away. You don't touch things in a museum. You can't take them home. You can't take what's in a museum home. I said, I'm going to have a museum where you can touch it, look at it, smell it, heft it, and buy it if you want and take it home. So that was in memory of her, the Museum of Fond Memories.
What's the most important thing in life to you?
Just Henry James said this quote, it's beautiful to me. He said the most important thing in life, there are three things. The first is to be kind. The second is to be kind. And the third is to be kind. Think of how the world would change if people just did that.
And Jim Reed, Kelly, is one of those people that I could have talked to for days.
Yeah, he's so well read.
Yeah.
He pretty much has a quote for just about everything in life.
From all these famous authors,
Yes.
because he's read them all. And he knows where everything in that story is.
Every book in this shop was picked by me, one at a time in different places, approved by me, cleaned up and priced and shelved by me. So I have a feeling for everything in the shop, everything. So that's why I know where things are.
What happens if somebody comes in here and they buy something? Is it like a part of you leaving?
Yes, always. It's my orphanage. It's my foster child center. Every book has a story. My favorite Carl Sandburg quote is, "Nothing happens unless first a dream." It sticks in my brain. I met him when I was a kid.
Carl Sandburg?
Yeah. And then 50 years later, I find this quote. I thought, holy mackerel. That is so honest, because I see that everything here is a story. So I'm helping continue the story for this book. It got here by somebody making the paper and designing the thing and having 52 rejection slips and, you know, on and on. It has a long story behind it. I can almost see it. You could visualize it if you were an animator or something, but the story's not over. You know, if you sell it to someone who wants it and loves it, then it goes and continues the story. See, I'm just a romantic or an idiot. Interchangeable, I think.
What is the most valuable book you've ever handled in here, monetarily?
Oh, you're just talking about money.
Yes.
Oh, that's hard for me to do because I don't like money. My favorite fictional character in antiques and old books is Ian McShane's character, Lovejoy. Listen to him. His philosophy is all through that series. He said everything has value except money.
When people come in here, what do you want them to take with them when they leave?
I want them to know that they have seen something special that they won't see anywhere else. And I want them to know or feel that they were treated right by a store owner who cared that they were there and who paid attention to them. I want them to know that they were taken care of by somebody who cared. It's that old thing about people remember how you make them feel. They don't remember you or your name or all kinds of other stuff. They remember how you made them feel.
Tell me something you treasure in here, whether it's for sale or not.
That's a good question. All my Santa Clauses and Christmas things.
You got a lot of that.
But Christmas is very special to me because of my mother, again.
Are you living your best life right now?
There's no way I'll ever know. So I just have to turn that around and say, well, life isn't hypothetical. It's actually what you're living. So this is it.
No dry run, no
This
rehearsal.
is the best of all possible worlds, according to Voltaire, you know, his characters. It's the one I settled on. Oh, sure, I might like to have been other things, like a Broadway actor or a movie. You know, I had various aspirations when I was younger, or a Pulitzer Prize winner, but now it doesn't seem to matter. None of that matters anymore. You know, I'm not chasing the prizes.
And this is one of those places that if you find yourself going through Birmingham, Alabama, please take the time to stop and go into Jim Reed's bookstore and Museum of Fond Memories.
And even if you're not looking for a book, this is a place where you go and it brings back all of those great childhood memories. For example, you found a book that was published the year you were born.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it was one of the Dick and Jane books that a lot of us learned to read from. And so those things they're always worth it. They make you feel good. And as always, we want to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Mueller Metal Roofs and Buildings.
And thanks for joining us for this episode of On the Road with Kelly and Bob. And don't forget, you can download the Odyssey app and listen to us anytime, anywhere.